Matthew, a dyslexic student, found reading and writing hard, and his classmates often bullied him, adding to his struggles. He also had a teacher, Mr. Smith, who constantly belittled him. However, Matthew discovered his passion for cooking while helping his mother prepare dinner one night. Despite being bullied and taunted by classmates, he refused to give up on his dream. Matthew's love for cooking intensified as he grew older, and he devoured cookbooks and food magazines to learn everything he could about the culinary world. Little did Matthew know that his passion for cooking would not only change his life, but the lives of those around him. He went on to become one of the most renowned chefs in the world, inspiring others to follow their dreams and never give up in the face of adversity. The day of the spelling test arrived, and Matthew could feel his nerves beginning to fray. He had studied for hours the night before, but he still struggled to spell even the simplest words. As Mr. Smith called out the first word, Matthew's heart began to race. He took a deep breath and tried to focus, but the letters seemed to jumble together on the page. When it was Matthew's turn to spell a word, he froze. He couldn't remember how to spell anything, no matter how hard he tried. He stumbled over the letters, feeling the heat rising to his face as the other students snickered and whispered to each other. Mr. Smith looked at Matthew in disgust. "Really, Matthew? I expected better from you," he sneered. "It's no wonder you're always struggling in class." Matthew felt tears prick at the corner of his eyes as he tried to hold back his sobs. He knew he was different, but he didn't know why he had to be treated so cruelly. As the class ended, Matthew gathered his books and tried to slip out of the room unnoticed. But Mr. Smith had other plans. He stopped Matthew at the door, grabbing him roughly by the shoulder. "You're not going anywhere, young man," he said. "We need to have a talk." Matthew felt his stomach drop as Mr. Smith led him to an empty classroom. He sat down in a chair and stared at the ground, too scared to meet Mr. Smith's eyes. "I'm very disappointed in you, Matthew," Mr. Smith said. "You have so much potential, but you're wasting it with your laziness and lack of focus." "I'm not lazy," Matthew muttered. "I try my best, but I just can't understand the words." Mr. Smith laughed scornfully. "Excuses, excuses. That's all I ever hear from you. You'll never amount to anything if you keep making excuses for your incompetence." Matthew felt a lump forming in his throat as Mr. Smith continued to berate him. He knew he was dyslexic, but he didn't know how to make Mr. Smith understand. All he wanted was to be able to learn and succeed like the other students. As he left the classroom, Matthew felt a sense of despair wash over him. He didn't know how much longer he could take the bullying and ridicule. But deep down, he knew that he had a secret weapon, his love for cooking. And with that thought in mind, Matthew took a deep breath and vowed to never give up on his dreams, no matter how hard it might be. Matthew's love for cooking began when he was a child. He would watch his mother in the kitchen, fascinated by the way she could turn simple ingredients into delicious meals. He found solace in cooking and often used it as a means of escape from the stresses of school and his struggles with dyslexia. One day, he decided to try cooking on his own. He'd been watching a cooking show on television and was inspired by the chef's creativity and passion. He gathered some ingredients from the fridge and started experimenting, throwing together a mix of spices and herbs to create a marinade for some chicken. As he worked, Matthew felt a sense of excitement building inside him. He had always loved food, but he had never felt this kind of thrill before. When he tasted the finished dish, he felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that he had never experienced before. From that day on, Matthew was hooked. Unfortunately, Matthew's passion for cooking didn't make him immune to the bullying he faced at school. His classmates continued to make fun of him, calling him names and teasing him about his dyslexia. Even some of his teachers seemed to have little patience for him, and Matthew felt like he was constantly fighting an uphill battle. One of the worst offenders was his math teacher, Ms. Johnson. She seemed to take pleasure in embarrassing Matthew in front of the class, often making him stand up and solve problems on the board, even though she knew he struggled with numbers. Matthew could feel his face burning with humiliation as his classmates snickered and whispered behind his back. It was hard for Matthew to find solace anywhere, except in the kitchen. Cooking was his sanctuary, a place where he could forget about the taunts and insults of his classmates and just focus on the task at hand. But even there, He couldn't escape the feeling of being an outsider. Despite the challenges he faced, Matthew had a secret dream. He wanted to become a chef. He knew that it was a long shot, given his struggles with reading and math, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this is what he was meant to do. Matthew spent hours researching culinary schools and reading about famous chefs, dreaming of the day when he could be one of them. But he kept his dream to himself, too afraid of what others would say if he revealed it. It wasn't until Matthew's mother stumbled upon one of his cooking journals that he finally opened up about his aspirations. She was shocked at first, but then she looked at him with a sense of pride and encouragement. "You can do this, Matthew," she said, giving him a hug. "You're so talented, and I know you have what it takes to be a great chef." Matthew felt a wave of relief wash over him. For so long, he had kept his passion for cooking hidden, feeling like it was something to be ashamed of. But now that he had told someone, he felt like he had taken the first step towards making his dream a reality. Together, Matthew and his mother started researching culinary schools, determined to find one that was the right fit for him. Matthew pored over the course catalogs and talked to admissions counselors, trying to find the program that would give him the skills and experience he needed to succeed. It wasn't easy. There were plenty of obstacles along the way, from the financial burden of tuition to the challenge of finding a school that accommodated his dyslexia. But Matthew refused to give up. One day, while working at a local restaurant as a dishwasher, Matthew had a chance encounter that would change his life forever. The head chef, a gruff man named Chef Marco, caught Matthew sneaking a peek at his recipe book and gave him a stern look. "Get back to work, kid," he growled, but then he paused, looking at Matthew more closely. "You have a good sense for flavor. You ever consider becoming a chef?" Matthew's heart raced as he told Chef Marco about his dream to attend culinary school. To his surprise, the chef offered to give him a shot, offering to let him work in the kitchen after hours to see if he had what it took to make it as a chef. It was a grueling few weeks as Matthew worked late into the night, learning from an experienced kitchen staff and honing his skills. But he loved every minute of it, relishing the chance to finally be doing what he'd always been dreaming of. Despite the encouragement from Chef Marco, Matthew still faced plenty of obstacles. His dyslexia made it difficult for him to keep up with the fast-paced environment of the kitchen, and he struggled with basic math and reading tasks. But he refused to give up. When he made a mistake, he didn't let it get him down. Instead, he took the time to learn from it and figure out how to do better next time. And slowly but surely, he began to improve. As he worked harder and harder, Matthew started to gain recognition from his fellow chefs. They were impressed by his passion and determination, and they could see that he had a real talent for cooking. But it wasn't just his cooking that was winning people over. Matthew's upbeat attitude and infectious smile had a way of lifting everyone's spirits. He was a natural leader, and the other chefs started to look up to him as someone who could inspire them to do their best. As he grew more confident, Matthew started to dream even bigger. He wanted to open up his own restaurant someday, one that would be known for its innovative dishes and warm, welcoming atmosphere. And while he still had a long way to go before he could achieve that dream, he was determined to keep working hard and improving his skills. Now years had passed, and Matthew worked his way up through the ranks of the culinary world. He trained with some of the top chefs in the industry, honing his skills and learning new techniques. And all the while, he never forgot his dream of opening up his own restaurant. Finally, after years of hard work and sacrifice, Matthew's dream became a reality. He opened his own restaurant, a cozy little bistro that quickly became the talk of the town. The critics raved about his innovative dishes, and the customers couldn't get enough of his warm, welcoming atmosphere. But it wasn't just his cooking that won people over. Matthew had become a beloved figure in his community, known for his generosity and kindness. He gave back to those in need, using his success to help others who were struggling with dyslexia like he had. And as he looked around at the bustling restaurant, filled with happy customers and satisfied diners, Matthew knew that he had truly made it. Well, one day, while Matthew was working in his kitchen, he received an unexpected visitor. It was his old teacher, Mr. Smith, the one who had made fun of him for his dyslexia all those years ago. Matthew's heart raced as he approached him, but he didn't let his fear get the best of him. He stood tall and looked him in the eye. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know that I was terrible to you when you were in my class, and I've regretted it ever since." Matthew took a deep breath and nodded. "I forgive you," he said simply. And with those words, a weight lifted off his shoulders. He had finally found the redemption he had been seeking all these years. As Mr. Smith left the restaurant, Matthew couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had come so far since those difficult days in school, and he had proven that no matter how hard things may seem, anything is possible with determination, hard work, and a little bit of faith. As Matthew reflected on his journey, he realized that he was exactly where he was meant to be. His struggles with dyslexia and the bullying he had endured had shaped him into the person he was today, and he was proud of that. He thought about all the young kids out there who were struggling with dyslexia just like he had, and he knew that he had a responsibility to help them, to show them that they could overcome any obstacle and achieve their dreams. And so, he began to give back in a big way. He started a program for kids with dyslexia, offering free cooking classes and mentorship opportunities. He used his platform to raise awareness about dyslexia and to advocate for those who were struggling with it. And as the years went by, Matthew's restaurant became more than just a place to eat. It became a community hub, a place where people came to connect and to feel a sense of belonging. And Matthew knew that he had truly found his calling. And with a smile on his face and a fire in his heart, Matthew continued to forge ahead, determined to make a difference in the world, one dish at a time.